Hey guys, still here and welcome back to Wargame. Today, once again, we're on Mud Fight, and I have quite an interesting game here for you with a couple of helicopters. Before that, I want to thank Corporal Krambeck for joining the Patreon page, as well as Captain JackKnife and Sergeant Steve, and thank you guys for your support for the channel. And of course, Captains Elfwyn and Lee, thank you very much for your continued monthly support. Alright, Wargame. Normally, you don't see something like a ninja, or at least I don't see them very often, and especially I don't use them very often. That might have to do with the fact that I don't play a whole lot of Blue Dragons or Japanese decks. The OH-1 Ninja, in case you're unfamiliar with it, is a reconnaissance helicopter armed with 4 short/medium-ish range air-to-air missiles. It has, of course, on top of being a good spotter, the capability of being stealthy. And most reconnaissance units are medium stealth. This helicopter, however, benefits from good stealth. And that is something that in 10v10 tacticals can be a critical element. Let's pull up the stats. Here we go, good stealth. It is exceptional at spotting, 280 kph. So with those elements combined, you can pretty much rush an enemy helicopter, provided that it is not covered by any other sort of AA unit. Push in, rush it, and take it down. And it seems like we have our first volunteer over here, Mi-28, and a double stack of Mi-24 alphas. I'm not sure why people insist on double stacking their units, but it is generally not going down well. There you go, that's 130 points with first kill. They both spent 2 missiles, so both ninjas, and you can see that he does not have them stacked. Both ninjas have 2 missiles left. Now let me just emphasize the stacking, or the lack thereof. If you stack your units, so if you combine them into one unit, there is a very good chance that they're both going to get hit by 1 missile. Especially something as fragile as a ninja. It only has 6 hit points. Let's say something slightly over an average missile is going to do more damage than that. And if you'd have them double stacked, like this, well, let's just say they are easy pickings. Now, in the case of the K-52, they're easy pickings, but they're also very expensive pickings at 130 units a pop. We're still waiting for the rest of blue for the move to the left flank, and in the meanwhile, the ninjas are going back to the base to rearm, because, as mentioned, they only carry 4 missiles, and that means that they can generally shoot down 2 helicopters if they hit everything. More often than not, you'll find that they only actually shoot down 1 missile and or shoot down 1 helicopter and maybe damage another one. Now another unit that Greg has over here, JSDF Rangers, as well as a short arrow to push up against further enemy helicopters. Another Mi-28 seems to be trying this flank, so far dodging all fire from the Crotal, but that is not going to last. Crotals are quite accurate at that. And Salamans might be able to get close enough to finish off that Mi-28. Interestingly, there's also a command helicopter. I'm not sure why you'd ever want to be using these in 10v10 tactical. I prefer my command units in tacticals to be either stealthy or to have some sort of offensive capability. This thing has neither. It has no way to properly conceal itself, because the only concealment that it can get are tree lines. And on top of that, it only carries a PKT and a very low amount of hit points. Not an ideal unit. Now the ninjas are back. They have been resupplied. One of these guys got promoted thanks to getting the kill, so we now have a almost elite unit and I believe a veteran. And this helicopter is just presenting itself as a target. Now, of course, you gotta be a bit careful here, because you don't know what the enemy is fielding. And they might not be yet deploying a dedicated AA unit, but something like a Scrajet can definitely ruin your day. Speaking of ruining days, so much for the command helo, and so much for the Mi-24A. That's another couple kills. One of them only has 1 missile left, the other one has 3. BMPT was briefly spotted by him, so he knows that it's there. You can see that Red 4 is trying to patrol with a couple of fighters, maybe hoping to pick up the helicopters if they get close enough. But so far, he really has no reason to get any closer than that, and I think that they're quite difficult to detect even with aircraft, because of that not very good, but good stealth. Okay, so we have two ninjas facing off against two KA-52s. Specs on the KA-52. A missile which does 2625 meter range. They carry 8. These guys carry 4 at a range which is less. Their stealth is medium, so I'm not sure if they have already seen him, but he has definitely spotted them. One slight problem here. They're stacked. And watch what happens to units that get stacked. Okay, we have confirmation that the unit did get detected. One of the ninjas got hit. And I think that at this point, even though they're not stacked, they were so close together that the splash damage did damage the other helo. However, they already shot down one of the K-52s with 2 missiles. They only have one more missile, which currently is aiming with an accuracy of 72%. If they can hit that shot, and they do, they're home free. They got no further anti-air threat, or air-to-air threat in this case. Well, with the exception of that jet, I suppose. And unfortunately that does cost him a ninja. But so far, in the first 5 minutes of the game, he has already scored 610 points. That is a lot of value that you're getting out of that ninja. Unfortunately, he does get killed. But still, you got way more value out of those ninjas, and you deprived the enemy of a lot of points that in tacticals are hard to come back with. So he crippled, I'd say, 2 players there. Got at least 1 command unit killed. Maybe infantry, as it was going down inside their helo, but no confirmation there. And that is just the push that you can do with 2 helos. Now he's currently sitting at 745 points. That's a lot of value in the first 6 minutes of the game. I have seen people do that before, but it is rare. Most of the time, something like that would include artillery fire. And artillery fire is very, very hit or miss. If you hit a column, like you saw in a previous video, you can get a ton of damage very early. If you miss it, you wasted your opportunity to get a whole blob of units. And you're trying to hit stuff which is being micromanaged quite a lot, and which is moving unpredictably quite a lot. So once you have missed your opportunity with artillery, I'm not saying it's worthless, but it is definitely getting a lot harder to get those high value kill counts. Now, blue 970, red 425. They're making good progress on the left, and I think this is partly due to the fact that red does not have enough infantry, because the other players, I think this guy with the 0 points, the Russian Cyrillic script, he deployed 2 K-52s, and one of the other guys, and I'm not exactly sure who it was, but deployed the Mi-28. Those are all down. That's about 400 points. That could have been 8 units of infantry plus their transports. If you don't deploy that, and you lose those helicopters early on here, then blue has an easier time pushing through. And there we go, that's the helo player with the K-52 dual stacked. It's not the first time I'm seeing him do that, by the way. I checked the previous video that I put up, and he was in there as well, double stacking helicopters. Speaking of helos, it looks like we have another Mi-28 contender. Do we have anything to counter that here? Well, we have a Gepard, a Heos, another Gepard. Heos is firing, but that's at the aircraft. Good damage too. Almost nailed him. Unfortunately, the Mi-28 is not as easy to hit, as of course the Heos has way better range against against airplanes than against helicopters. Now, the fact that the JSDF Rangers can get this far on the left is interesting. Normally people defend this part of the forest, but they sometimes position a picket helicopter on this side of the hill to make sure that JSDF Rangers or whatever other flanking force you might have get detected early. That's not the case this time around. And by the looks of it, he'll be spotting this side pretty soon. If you can make that hop, he's almost home free to make it to Bravo. What does red have left here? Afghanskis? Please don't tell me you're going to move those to the forest, because that would not be a good deployment of these units. I don't really think that that would be a good deployment, because these things, if they have the range, they can do a lot of damage. At short range, their odds of killing the Marines over here are very low, because the Marines are going to take their Carl Gustav and probably just one-shot this unit. That's how quickly they can dispense of it. If you would hold your distance, like here, and try to fire at the tree line, if you see an enemy infantry unit over there, that would be far more damaging to the infantry. That's one transport. 1225 versus 515. This is this is really not very good. Morskaya's pushing up. Those might be the last couple of infantry units that they have. I don't think that they have a whole lot reinforcing these guys, or they probably would have thrown it at the Marines at this point. Something that I hear a lot of people say, by the way, on my Discord, and I understand that this is Dutch, so it is harder to pronounce, but it is not Corps Mariners. It is Corps Mariniers. It is Dutch. And interestingly, as opposed to how the U.S. Army structure, or not U.S. Army. Let's say U.S. Armed Forces. The Corps Mariniers in the Dutch Defense Forces are a part of the Dutch Navy. They are not a separate entity. They are just part of the Navy, as opposed to the Marine Corps, which is a separate entity in U.S. forces, as far as I know. Anyway, that's a bit of background on the units that we have over here. Bit of artillery. I have yet to see a super heavy on this flank. I don't think we're going to see any. Look at the scores. 875 for Atlas over here. A couple of points here for Selimans. 150 for Sela. But red is almost a pushover at this point. Previously, I had a video where Charlie was being heavily defended by blue. This time around, you could argue that blue does not have to push. If it pushes, its chances of losing units increase, as you're going to be seeing an increasingly tough defense. But so far, it seems that red is just a big pushover. Anyway, how fast you can push back red is not really the point of this video. The point is that double stacking units is very, very dangerous. If you encounter something like a ninja or an enemy ASF, that could immediately wreck both of your helicopters. And you can have your very, very expensive units, but even if they're not managed properly, then it is going to be game over very quickly. Also, try to coordinate with your allies to make sure that you don't have 2 or 3 people bringing in helicopters. That is very dangerous to one flank, because helicopters are, as far as I consider them, support units. They're not actual units that you use to hold a flank, as opposed to, for example, infantry. Now, Atlas over here, 995 points. That's almost a third of his team. Let's see what he killed. One ninja got an Mi-28, a 24A. Spetsnaz grew, as I pretty much expected, dying thanks to the crash of the Mi-24 Alpha. That's a dangerous infantry unit disposed of very early. An Mi-4 command unit, an Mi-24A, 2 K-52s combined with his buddy over here, Kenjiro. They even managed to, or actually, sorry, not them, not the ninjas, but the short arrow managed to nail another Mi-28. That must have been the other Mi-28 that was operating, and a MiG-29 913, as well as a Hachina Nishiki killing a RAK-91, but that's not terribly interesting. So, ninjas, be on the lookout for them. Be very careful when you see one, especially if you have a helicopter close by. Now, they are not immortal, they can be killed, and for example, if you have a couple of disposable transport helos that are empty, send those in first, absorb the missiles, then push in with your K-52 or other helicopters that are capable of shooting down fellow helicopters. Anyway, that's it. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. And of course, if you want to be named as a Patreon supporter and thanked for your support, please visit the link down in the description where I tell you all about Patreon, how you can support the channel, and what perks you get for that. Again, thank you for watching, thanks for your support, and I'll see you soon for the next video.